to our show. John Case is here. Welcome, John. And Rosanna is still taking care of her grandchild, but she will be back in great form because she'll be wrestling with her grandson for the last 2 weeks. She'll be back in great form next week. Well, we got a lot to talk about this morning. This leaked document by Justice Alito, is that his name? And oh my goodness, what a dark chapter is being written by these right wing judges. We're going to be talking about the second vote at the Amazon Union last week, the primary in the Buckeye State. I don't know what's going on in the place of my birth, but Anita's going to tell us. And then finally, it looks like Karl Marx turns 204 years. I don't know how he managed to do that. He must be eating a lot of yogurt to have lived all of these years. But we'll investigate that at the end of the show. And then, of course, there's our mailbag. We got a lot of interesting questions like, what's up with the red thing? Where did that come from? I didn't research it on Wiki before. I hope somebody else did, so they can give us an answer. But let's start with the leaked document, the brief written by Justice Alito, which plans to outlaw more abortions, which will subsequently be criminalized in a whole number of different states. Anita, were you shocked?
I was I was I was shocked by the extent to which it went. I thought there would be some kind of a curbing of the response, but his this decision as it's written goes way farther than people really did expect. In fact, even beyond giving states back the right to ban abortion, but also putting other rights in jeopardy that have been struggled for and won since the Constitution was written. It's like if it's not in the deepest recesses of the Constitution from 1787, then it's not a protected right. And it really goes so flies in the face so much of what these now justices said when they were candidates to be justices. I mean, they just misrepresented their own viewpoints about protecting precedent. And I think we did know. What I really liked about the CPUSA statement was that it tied it back to voting, and we knew voting makes a difference, and we could see this on the horizon in 2016 when Donald Trump said he would only appoint judges that were anti-abortion. So we've seen this coming on the horizon for a long time, and it's really it's just going to be devastating for women and for the working class in general in this country.
Well, I mean, they just they all said, I think that Roe v. Wade is settled law. I'm not going there. And then they they flipped the script, and now they're hunting bear, John Case, with respect to
Well,
democratic rights. How's that
um,
going to play in West Virginia?
well, I think the a poll in West Virginia concluded that a majority of West Virginians support revoking Roe v. Wade. I don't know if that's a majority of the women or not, but that's just came out. Joe Manchin has said he's not going to comment on it until the decision is rendered, which is like an agnostic position. And there was a lot of outrage at this week's AFL-CIO leadership meeting in West Virginia, but also the top leadership also remained, I will just say, a bit on the agnostic side. Um, and so, and it makes, of course, that makes no sense whatsoever. It drives women out of the workforce. It makes the U.S. Workforce less competitive around the world. And it's hard to understand even a bourgeois competitiveness standpoint why someone should do this. But I would just say that having gone door to door in support of Representative McKinley's attempt to seize the Republican nomination from a guy that's a 100% Trumper, Mooney in West Virginia, I talked to working class Republicans um, for about 25 houses. And the church, the right wing churches are the base of this thing. The Republican, it's the mass base of the Republican Party. And it is, they're locked in. And the two Republicans, we're supporting the guy that's only an 87% Trumper, whereas the other guy is 120% Trumper. So it's that's where we're at in West Virginia right now on this question. It's going to be, I don't know how it's going to play entirely, but it's very difficult right now.
Scott, in the great state of New York, I'm sure that there's a majority of the people who are pro reproductive rights, pro choice.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and I know that you've studied the inner recesses of the Constitution, and you've also looked into the justice's written brief. What's your take on it?
Well, I have not, in fact, read the brief or the leaked whatever it was draft decision yet, which mea culpa. Uh, but it was not surprising. It was pretty obvious that in all of the confirmation hearings, I consider Roe v. Wade the settled law of the land is code for this. Like, I want to get confirmed, and then we'll see. So it's not surprising at all. This is not the first time they've just overturned a precedent when they stripped public sector unions of the right to collect fair share fees. That was a very clear. It overturned a case that had been, decided and settled. In terms of democratic rights, I think as Marxists, it's important to remember that sort of where our rights come from. They don't come from a document. They don't come from a court, right? They come from struggle. The court decisions, the documents, the laws, all of those consolidate rights, recognize rights, ratify them. They're very important. They're worth struggling for. But rights come from struggle, and the right to reproductive freedom, reproductive choice, as with all democratic rights under capitalism, was far from being won. Struggle, even with Roe v. Wade left unchanged, it would have still been a very steep uphill battle to win real reproductive choice because of the barriers of distance, of cost. My wife informed me yesterday that a lot of abortions are done without anesthesia in this country. I don't know, for insurance reasons or what, but that in itself is horrifying. So the struggle for reproductive choice and for all democratic rights continues, and it will be won, as we've always said, in the streets and at the ballot box.
Is the reason that you weren't able to study the inner recesses of those documents because you were too busy brushing the front of your hair that you were left with, or
Well,
I couldn't help
I
it.
will admit it does take more upkeep than such a thin swath of hair would suggest.
I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. Forgive me, Anita. You said vote, but I listened to that voting is the solution. But I listened to a clip by Elizabeth Warren, who was righteously outraged by the decision. She was very, very angry. But the announcer used it as a jumping off point to say, voting is not enough. Voting is not the solution. We have voted and voted. The Democrats hold the House, the Senate, the presidency, and it hasn't helped. This voting stuff is, stop telling us to vote. The problem is the Republicans are hard locked to the right, and the Democrats are making concessions left and right. We got to do something different. What do you say to that?
Well, I think voting is a necessary but not sufficient means of overturning this kind of movement, this anti-democratic movement in our country. I think we all have to get out and vote, and vote. Well, we're going to talk about our elections in Ohio, but vote against fascism. I mean, this is a fascist move. This move taking reproductive rights away from women. It's a fascist move, and we have to vote, but we also have to get out on the streets and protest. We have to get into our senators' faces and tell them how we feel. I mean, we are I mean, I don't know about West Virginia, but in the country, the majority of Americans don't want to overturn Roe v. Wade. They recognize that this is the common sense good of the American people want these rights. And for them to take it away and just, thumb their noses at the majority, I think we just have to get out on the street, but we also have to vote so that we can get people in there who will really represent the majority of Americans and not represent this minority of, gerrymandered GOP, power structures.
How about a general strike, John Case? Is that the solution? If voting is not enough, should we issue a militant call for a general strike?
Well, are we going to put it to a vote of the members first?
Or Scott,
Yeah.
dual power. Maybe we should be about the process of building dual power if that voting is not enough.
Look, it's not a question of enough or not. And I think that this idea that the Democrats, like, I've seen a bunch of memes lately saying, the Democrats are just using this. They don't really care about rights. They're just trying to, get people fired up for the midterms, whatever. I think there's a real fundamental error in that. There's this tendency that consists in trying to find the essence of the They're in essence they're a ruling class party. They just pretend to care about the rights of working people and women and people of color, when in fact it's more complicated. There's a contradiction. They're caught in a contradiction between the kind of mass base of the party and the interests of the ruling elite, in a contradiction between the political slogans of the liberal bourgeoisie and their class interests. So it's not just that the Democrats are as a bloc hypocritically using this or whatever. It's that they're in a contradictory position. There are multiple tendencies within the party, and part of building the strength that we need is electoral struggle, voting, but also campaigning and getting people to run for office, and all of the stuff that took a massive uptick in 2016.
The guys say
And
all they're doing is sending out fundraising letters, and they're not really fighting. And so, what do, John Case?
Well, I think you have to look at the objective that we're looking at a crisis of capitalism at a certain stage here, and there are objective difficulties that there's more than one authoritarian plan. There's the Trumpers, but in my view, the billionaires that backed the anti-Trump movement have their own autocracy in mind, and they're pushing it very hard right now. And so I think the idea that it's not so much what the Democrats are a bourgeois liberal party, and they're not going to fix this crisis. They may want to. That doesn't mean they're insincere. But it's going to take an upheaval of the people, of the multitudes of people, to reckon with the fact that a certain kind of capitalism has to be pushed back and a certain kind of socialism has to come forward. And how that all works out, we don't know yet. But I think you got to count on the upheaval of the people while you're voting. I mean, voting is a political act, and but there have to be a lot of other political acts. I mean, I know you're going to talk about the Amazon situation is going to be just a massive proof of that thesis, too.
It reminds me of something Engels said. In fact, he wrote, "There is only one true historical right, the right of revolution on which all modern states without exception are founded. So that in a certain sense, I think as John Case was saying, all of these rights, these democratic rights, are won through upheaval of the people, through struggle, not by grant of some uh, document or government or legislature or whatever.
Well, the people have been struggling. Millions of women marched the day after Trump got elected. And Black Lives Matter, upheaval, unprecedented in the history of this country. Millions, hundreds of thousands came out to support Trump on the one side, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren on the other. There are mass movements taking place in this country, but it's only by a combination of political devices and weapons and methodologies and strategies uh, that you can uh, begin to see the possibility of affecting real change, but it has to be in a coordinated way. And but to tell people not to vote, to me, is the height of absurdity. I mean, it's just like pulling your leg out from under you and saying, "Go on, walk down the street." To me, it's a ridiculous concept, and we ought to push back against it as hard as we possibly can. Uh, but one of the big issues, John Case, is what you mentioned is the organizing of the working class, and one of the major uh, front lines of that battle is the fight around Amazon. And we had a
Right.
big victory there a couple of weeks ago, and then they lost the second vote. What's your analysis?
Well, it's a long and difficult and multi-sided struggle, and it's going to require a political coalition, including the president of the United States, probably in the end, to resolve it. And it is going to involve not only the organization of Amazon workers in every dimension that we can, but also it's going to involve a partial socialization of a too big to fail enterprise that has many public goods at stake in its operation. So I see a multi-sided struggle. NLRB, the company came back from all reports in the across the street Staten Island facility there with an even more thuggish and vigorous and intimidating kind of thing going on. And that stuff is terrifying. Having been through those campaigns, that is a terrifying experience. Now, and it doesn't mean it's over. Those terrifying campaigns like that have their own consequences as well. I just want to say, for example, that I had wonderful discussions with people down in the South and the Carolinas who are imitating the struggle in New York in certain ways, but these folks are committed, and there's something going on in these fulfillment centers. There's the brother that was he's a reverend. He was telling me that 50% of the workforce turns over every 8 months. Every 8 months, and the conditions are such that the company knows that no one's going to work there more than 3 years. You couldn't do it. Maybe a very small fraction of the people that have regular hours, but the rest of the thing is designed to be impossible to sustain. And so I think and that's introduced a real interesting attitude amongst the organizers there that managed to do it. That by the way, they all call themselves after the Marvel heroes. I talked to Dr. Bruce Banner. I talked to Steve Rogers. It was great. The kind of enthusiasm they had and the love that they had for their people. Man, I was blown away. So I have hope and a great sense that there's lots to be done, and the most important thing is you never give up. You keep. What's the basic union principle? The most important one. Find something for everyone to do and leave no one behind. Um, That's the key thing.
Well, the working class loses more battles than we win. That's always been the case, and it will always be the case until the final battle. Let's hope we don't lose that one.
You're
But that's
quoting
when
Gus
the
Hall
real work
there.
will begin. So
You're
they
quoting
say.
Gus
Rosa
Hall there,
Luxemburg.
Joe. You
Huh?
know, you're quoting Gus Hall there because I told him about a lost strike one time. I was crying in my, I was crying about it. It hurts so much. And he told me, he says, well, most strikes are lost. I
Yeah.
wanted to stab him in the head right then when you said that. It turned out he was right. So,
In Ohio, speaking of voting, Anita, uh,
Yes.
what's going on?
Well,
This Joker,
we
what's
had
his
our
name?
primary
Dan?
the other day. Um, our Senator Rob Portman, a real milk toast Trumper, a George Bush type of Republican, but he's retiring. His spineless self out of the Senate, and these are the folks who are coming forward to replace him. There was a really hot contest for the GOP nomination on the uh, for Senate, and J.D. Vance, who was running third, was endorsed by Trump and ended up victorious the other day. So we'll see what's going on. He's a very dangerous candidate, very wealthy man, hedge fund person, pretends to be kind of a man of the people of Southern Ohio, but those are really dubious claims. He had the backing of Peter Thiel, so he's a really a person who's been floated by big tech, and he's a big Fox contributor. He's always on Tucker Carlson's show, apparently. So he got a lot of airtime from Fox News. So he came out with 32% of the vote, but a million people voted in the Republican primary, and only 500,000 voted in the Democratic primary, which was not as nail biter a race as the Republican side. So that may have been why their numbers were higher, but it's going to be a real struggle to defeat J.D. Vance in the fall, but I think we have to do it. It would be such a gift to the Senate to have one more Democratic senator in there. Tim Ryan is a seasoned politician. He's been around the block. He purports and sometimes follows through on commitment to working class issues. So, and he's from Northwest. He's from your neck of the woods, Joe. So I hope we can see a victory there. And actually the on the for the governor's race, Nan Whaley beat her opponent, who was the mayor of Cincinnati, mayor of Dayton, and I think it means something for women's rights. I think given the abortion ruling that we can see coming down, I think it will be more important than ever to defeat Mike DeWine as governor, who's very anti-abortion. So it will be our work is cut out for us, really electoral work, and that electoral work will bring people together on common issues like rights to reproductive rights and fighting fascism in Ohio.
We are from Northeast Ohio. You couldn't get any further east than Youngstown and Warren without being in the great state of Pennsylvania, not Northwest. And Tim
Well, the state
Ryan,
of Pennsylvania, let's say.
huh? What you say,
I was
Scott?
going to say, I said, you said the great state of Pennsylvania, and I said, let's just say the state of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is
It's
kind
a
of a,
great state. It's a long state. It takes you 6 hours
it's big.
to
It's
traverse it.
moderately sized for
Uh,
sure.
let's argue about politics. Um, let's go to the mailbag questions. Color red. Where did color red come from? Anybody know? Why do we? I know why they call us leftists. That's because the left sat on the left side of the chamber, and the right during the French Revolution, and the right sat on the feudal lords and all of sat on the right. But where did the color red come from? Anybody know?
I have a theory.
Anita?
I didn't look it up. I didn't Google it for today, but I did wear red, and I do wear the color red whenever I can. And I believe it comes from the people's flag. The people's flag is deepest red. It shrouded off to our martyred dead. It implies the blood that has been shed in the struggle for workers' rights and workers' unity and for revolution. So
And
I believe that's where it's coming from, my
And
and
theory.
who is
it
the
was the
author
it was the
of that,
color of
little
well,
rhyme, Anita?
Excuse me?
You rhymed. Who's the author? You know,
The people's flag? I don't know. I don't know that.
okay,
Who wrote
all
that? Do
right,
you know?
fair
People's
enough.
flag?
Scott?
well, it was it wasn't just a color that the Communist Party picked. It was the color of the working class movement in Europe well before that. At the end of his writings on or one of his essays on the Paris Commune, Marx talks about the red flag of the Republic of Labor waving over City Hall. Um, you see it in um, some older socialist and anarchist stuff. It's been a color associated with radicals and especially with working class revolutionaries, and that's where the communists got
Okay.
it from, because that's
We
that's
got we
us.
got one I don't know from Anita. We got a second I don't know from you. John Case, where did the color
Uh,
red come from?
well, it came from. I don't know where it came from, and I don't particularly care. I mean, and we can go blue if you want to. We can take any color we want. I mean, there's orange, and the next generation will probably pick another color. Okay, so
We
I
are
wouldn't
going to
hang your
research
hat on the
this,
color.
friends. We're going
Red
to
is also
research this, and we're going to come back to it next week. There was another mailbag question. When did the last major CPUSA rally happen? They said it was in Baltimore, and in 1953. This is the person writing in, and that Earl Browder attended, which would be a big surprise to me in
that
1953, given everything that was going. Because he had been expelled from the party because of his dissolving of it. But then I heard another story, John Case, and that was that Browder reapplied several times to join, and each time they said no. Um,
Yeah.
were you at
Well,
Cobo Hall?
no, no.
No, me either. Me either. Anita, were you at Cobo Hall?
No, no, Joe, I wasn't.
I think that was the last big rally we held. I think that was in the 70s sometime. Um, but we used to hold them in Carnegie Hall. No, Madison Square
Madison
Garden.
Square
Madison
Maybe
Square
Garden.
both.
Garden.
Huh?
I think my wife was there actually.
Is it
But
where? Cobo Hall
yeah, I think she
or
went to that
Madison
one.
Square Garden?
No, Kobo Hall.
Cobo Hall. Cobo Hall.
Yeah.
We're coming back. Give us a few
Right.
years. We're coming back. And you heard it
I was
here for
going to
the
say,
first
what
time.
about last Sunday, Joe? What about last Sunday? We were at May Day.
Last Sunday we were at May
Communists
Day.
are
It
out
was
on the
not
street a
it was
lot.
not our demonstration. It was the
So,
demonstration of the workers. It was called by the Amazon Labor Union. There were several different unions that participated and other community organizations. And we played a small part. We were there in force. We had about 40 or 50 comrades. It was our biggest showing,
mhm,
our biggest contingent. And some, by the way, we're going to Washington, D.C. on June 18th.
that's right.
We're going to have a big contingent, and we invite everybody to join us. Be there or be square at the Poor People's March. And then this other person asked another mailback question. He said, I'm a Marxist Leninist, but
Mm.
Marxism, Leninism, Marx and Lenin are anti religious. You get persecuted for believing in God. What is wrong with you guys?
That's
Anita?
completely false.
Okay, we're going to come right back to you, Scott. Anita?
Sure. Well, of course, we don't persecute people for their religious beliefs, and I think religion I mean, as we know from Karl Marx, religion is the sigh of the oppressed and the heart in a heartless world. And we have a heartless world. We live in a capitalist society, and sometimes those are banes. I mean, uh, um, soothing to us to have religious beliefs, and sometimes it brings us together. But I think we are, as materialists, we are critical of religious beliefs, and sometimes religious beliefs have been used to control people, to divide the working class, and to oppress workers. I'm thinking of back to Cotton Mather, talking about how slaves should just serve their masters, and that's the way for salvation. So religion has been a double-edged sword. It has been
Some
used
people would say the
for
same thing,
oppression as
Anita.
well.
Some people would say the same thing, Anita, about the dictatorship of the proletariat. Scott, that has been misused. I mean, Scott,
Well,
you.
so what Lenin and what Marxist Leninists oppose is when religion becomes a tool of the capitalist class and the capitalist state, or in the case of Russia, of the Tsarist regime. When Lenin set out to crush the Orthodox Church, or when that occurred in the context of the revolution, it was because the church was a mainstay of reaction. It had nothing to do with people's beliefs, though of course Lenin was a materialist and an atheist. It had to do with the actual role of the church in the reactionary power structure, and that is something that we do oppose. We see a clear difference between um, a religion of the working class, one that espouses liberation, emancipation, equality, as we see, for example, in so much of the Christian Gospels, and then a religion of the ruling class that espouses, submission and obedience and staying in your place, and that's a totally different kind of thing. So no, we do not countenance religion being used as a tool of oppression and a tool of inequality.
Well, from that standpoint, we don't countenance anything being used as a tool of repression and inequality. But John Case, I got to quote Gus Hall again, since you opened the door
I did.
a little bit earlier. He said that our fight is not against God, it's against capitalism. Agree or disagree?
I half agree with most of the things that Gus
Oh,
said,
that's
but I think the criticism of religion has an important role in the promotion of scientific viewpoints. I think at the same time that in many communities, the churches are the community of help, of cooperation, of helping feed each other when you're sick, of visiting when you're not well, of knocking on your door, and et cetera. It's a social life as well. So it's not a choice in that respect. But yeah, I think, and I think the main role of religion in the United States right now is it's the base of the Republican Party. And so I think the criticism of it in this country, and especially its institutionally reactionary role, at least the part that is reactionary, um, yeah, I think that that's a contest ideologically that we need to engage, and um, that's what I think. So
I have to respectfully disagree. The main role of religion in this country is contested. And on the one side, there's the right, and on the other side, another side, there's the center, and then there's the left. And the majority of people in this country voted against the right. And I dare say today that most of them are probably religious. Most of them are probably either, or and they voted against the right wing. So when you talk about black folk, Latino, Asian, white folk who are believers, they are, most of them, democratic minded people. So I would say that we have to recognize that. And the other thing is that uh, I agree 100% with Gus on this issue of we're not fighting God. You know, my opinion is that until we solve the problem of death, there's always going to be religion. And so let it alone. You know, I'm a materialist, probably part of the time mechanical, some of the time dialectical. But I'm not mad at nobody for Anita for holding. Everybody's welcome. Don't you agree?
I agree that everyone's welcome in the struggle for working class rights.
What
Absolutely.
about devil worshippers? Do you want devil worshippers in the Communist Party?
I wrote my dissertation on Rastafari, which is another kind of
Wait. They're
niche
not devil
religion.
worshippers. The Rastas are Christians. They follow
That
Ali Selassie. They come
right,
out of the
right.
Catholic Church.
But they
What are you
are. I
talking
mean,
about?
they're a different, a set of different, but a revolutionary group nonetheless. So I think there can
I,
be. I would
I don't
welcome
care if
them.
they join. Who cares if they're in the party? But why do
We
you have to
welcome
say the
people of
Nicene Creed?
all faiths. And the devil worship tip. I mean,
And also, what I think we're getting waylaid in a sense by the this word belief, because belief means a lot of different things. You
we're,
know,
we're,
there's a
we're gonna.
one can believe or be spiritually, emotionally, whatever, loyal to a certain creed and institution and set of stories, um, and still be, in terms of political analysis, social analysis, very much a materialist. Belief is not, it's not a monolithic thing. It doesn't mean that everybody has there's like an ideological box, and we choose one. We choose either materialism or religion or one particular religion, and then we take that and that's our people's beliefs are heterogeneous. People believe a lot of things at the same time, and they sort through the contradictions when they arise and don't when they don't. So I think, um, insofar
And I
as
believe that this show has to come to an end.
mhm.
We're, we're way past time. Thank you,
All right,
Scott. Thank you, John Case. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Anita. Thank you,
Thank
everybody, for listening. All are welcome in the Communist Party, or whatever
right.
faith or faithless. Join,
Mhm.
fight, struggle, stay strong, stay safe, stay in the fight. See you next week.
later,
Bye,
comrades.
everybody.